Hello, everyone. My name is Bahanu Nasia from Wonderland, and I have the honor to present you Franziska from our project Fair Mobility. She was one of the experts to give us some input in our activities in Ebensee. And yeah, I'm so happy to share with you her insights on care work and in rural areas, challenges in rural areas. So, Franziska, would you please present yourself?
Yeah, my name is Franziska Ammer. I work for a small office that specializes in mobility in rural areas, especially on-demand services. And we are part of a research project that is kind of similar to Fair Mobility. It's called Mobiflex. And my work focuses on gender-sensitive adoption of mobility systems.
Franziska, how did you come up with this topic? Because this is your research topic as well. Are you coming from rural areas? Do you have special relation to care work, or what did you encounter as hot topics in this field?
So I come from a rural area, as you guessed, and I kind of therefore know what the challenges are with like the lack of infrastructure that is given there in regards to public mobility services. And also I focus my studies that are in spatial planning on the issues concerned with care work, the like mental load issues and physical load that is burdened upon people who care for others, and their time constraints that are also affecting their mobility. So it's kind of melting all the topics together that I'm interested in and proposing a method to involve carers in planning.
Mhm. Would you like to share with us your work, maybe?
Yes, I will. One second. So here we go. My work is about on-demand transport, as I mentioned, and care work in rural areas. I proposed a method for involving carers and cared for people. As I said, ah, I will divide my presentation into several aspects. First of all, I will show you the Mobiflex project, which my work is part of. I will tell you about the issues and themes addressed. I will tell you about the research design and theoretical framework it's based in. I will show you the key findings from the discussion, and the heart of it all is the participation process I mapped out for one of the towns that we are active in. And I will close my presentation on telling you about the limitations of the studies and the implementation implications for mobility planners and people in research. So let me tell you about Mobiflex. It's a publicly funded research project. It's funded by the Austrian government. We have two towns that we are active in. One is in Upper Austria and one is in Lower Austria. They both have about 6,000 inhabitants. We work together with the TU Wien, the Technical University of Vienna, and a sociologist called Sonja Gruber. And we are also working together with Bergfreund Smart City Products, which is a very exciting company that plans and implements mobility stations. So we can actually build something in the towns that we are active in. The project is taking place it started in October last year and it will last for 3 years. And the focus is gender sensitive mobility in rural areas, as I said. And my topic is I work on the gender and on demand transport, which is the fourth of the five components. The issues I address are the care crisis, which is a phenomenon that spans across a whole level of areas. It starts within the household, but also has a global outcome. I also address the autocentric mobility in rural areas and the lack of integration of different realities of life into mobility planning. And my proposed example is a gender-sensitive participation concept that is made for one of the towns, which is called Ottensheim, which we are active in with Mobiflex. So the main themes addressed are participation, care work, and on-demand mobility. And my research question is, how must participatory processes be designed to address the specific needs of people who perform care work and those who depend on care in the design of on-demand mobility systems? So I researched by doing a literature analysis and a first round of expert interviews. Then I discussed the results of the expert interviews and the literature analysis. And these results were molded into a participation concept for Ottensheim, which is the town I'm working on. And I did another step of literature analysis on methods that could be used in participation processes and a document analysis on the documents that are involved in our research project. And I tested my concept and did another round of expert interviews to get to my final draft. So the theoretical framework my work is based in concerns gender and political participation, gender and rural space, mobilities of care, which is kind of the heart of my theory. It addresses the influences on care work onto the habits of people who are mobile. And the last theory that I'm addressing is gender smart mobility. It's the combination of smart transport, which is a kind of comes from a very technical side of theories. It springs from the technical evolution of transport, but the people like Christensen, who are part of this theory, they expand the theory by addressing gender and diversity mainstreaming to make it truly sustainable and to make it a gender smart mobility. The key findings in the discussions I will tell you now. They are divided into the three topics. So for on-demand mobility services, I found out that they close a temporal and spatial gap in the public transport system in rural areas that is very spotty anyways. So there are huge gaps that they try to fill. These services require strong political commitment for the consistent implementation. They are now designed on the basis of existing data. There is no systematic involvement of potential users so far, and currently they are designed without taking gender-sensitive planning into account. For care work, I found out that the unequal distribution of care work between genders is due to inherent patriarchal norms. The gender differences in access to the labor market is very different in rural areas compared to urban areas, and there is a low availability of professional care services, starting from daycares for children up to elderly care. And all this unequal distribution has an effect on the mobility patterns of the carers and their opportunities to be part of the society there and also be politically active. And the key findings for the participation are that the challenges that on-demand services face are the budget constraints in rural municipalities. The opportunity, though, is that needs-based adaptation of on-demand transport services is possible. The participation processes could also strengthen democratic decision making in these towns. And the proposed process has the characteristics that there is an early and continuous involvement of various stakeholders, that there is transparent communication and a systematic integration of gender-sensitive perspectives, which is now lacking. So the goal for my process is that there is a recording of nuances of the mobility behavior associated with care work. This has not been done systematically. There has only been a few studies on care work and mobility in rural areas. Raising for awareness on sustainable mobility and queries regarding, do you actually use the demand responsive transport that is already there? Do you actually know that it is there? And yeah. And the last goal is the identification of gaps in the on-demand mobility and the rest of the public transportation system. So the three major target groups I lined out are teenagers who are on the brink of being mobile on their own, like thinking about, do I want to have a car in the future? Do I get my driver's license? Who are now still dependent on their parents, but kind of thinking on, what do I do when I'm not dependent on them anymore? Then the second group are senior citizens and people with mobility impairments who are dependent on other people, mostly their relatives, on going to their appointments and actually being part of society. And the last target groups are parents and people who are in that middle age that kind of care for younger people, but also for older people, their parents, their grandparents. And I will not go into detail, but the result of my work are these tables that address different event formats for each of the target groups. And because I'm part of this Mobiflex project, for all three target groups, we can actually implement the events, which is very nice. We already did 2 of them, and one more will be implemented as a workshop for teenagers in a school in September. Yes. And so now I will round up my presentation by telling you the limitations of the study. So the spatial context for the discussion was not pointed out to a specific type of space. There is a huge difference between the rural areas. There are some very wealthy ones that are close to centers, and there are some that are less wealthy regarding their infrastructure. So because I did expert interviews and those experts were from all over Austria and some of them were from Germany, I couldn't kind of pick one specific area to do the discussion in. And this I would do probably differently if I do it again. The second round of interviews were not taken in Ottensheim because I didn't want to influence the project too much. I didn't want to spark false hopes that it might not be implemented. And there, as part of the project I did, there could not be a long-term evaluation of the process because it's part of my thesis and it only spans out like a a specific time frame, but as part of our research project, there is of course long-term evaluation, but the results I'm presenting to you now have not been evaluated in the long term because, as I said, some of them were not even implemented yet. And since it's a sociological approach to planning, I cannot tell you about the climate relevance of on-demand mobility services in the town I did it in. And also, since on-demand mobility is a rapidly changing space, there is still a lot of research lacking on, for example, the climate relevance of it all. So I would urge people who are in mobility research to research the climate relevance and the effects that on-demand services have on social participation. There is more qualitative research necessary, especially in mobility research. It has been historically been based on a lot of like quantitative research, but now I see the field turning, as for example with projects like Fair Mobility and Mobiflex, but there's still a long way to go in my mind. And also, yeah, the impact of participation processes in general, especially focusing on the rural areas, the effects of them all have not been like systematically proven. It's kind of hard to compare them, but there could be more like research on that to kind of um, to use them in further projects. And so, lastly, I want to recommend to planners that gender smart mobility and mobilities of care should be in their minds when they plan things. There should be an intersectional consideration of mobility needs. Planners need to shift their mind to who will actually use the service I'm planning and who could profit from it, who could, to what lengths do I need to go to reach these people, and how do I reach them is you need to ask yourself, do we need an innovation and participation? We can't just have a town hall and expect everybody to come. We need diversity and low barriers to enter the discussion. We need a binding nature of results because if people take their time out of their days to do an inquiry or to go to a town hall or to kind of go to this public space and fill out your thing that you prepared, they want to see that actually be implemented. And we need to have continuous evaluation, as I said, to see what actually comes out of these projects, how did participation shape them, and we need interdisciplinary collaboration because I'm from a spatial planning background, but I need people who are in social work, who are trained to talk to people from all kinds of backgrounds, and we as spatial planners need to kind of to look at our work and see the nuances, which words we are using to address people, and we kind of need the checks from other to be checked from other disciplinaries to use the right words and the right pictures and the language to address all certain kinds of people. That's what I want to give you, and I'm happy to discuss further.
If you could take out the screen
Yeah.
share, then we can
Yes.
see
Here
you
we go.
better. So
Yeah.
it's as you mentioned a few times, it's aligning a lot with our fair mobility objectives
Yeah.
and findings.
Yeah.
Uh, the most because I'm coming also from the planning background, the most important thing I think is that planning always reacts on existing knowledge, data, assumptions, and so on. And it was formed in the last 100 years with the
Yeah.
premise on cars, as you highlighted, the thing is all the requirements for planning, uh, regional planning, urban planning, doesn't matter, is based on those things and not on quality, and also not, in a way, it was idealized world that everything should be reachable by car, and that manifested in our uh, planning regulations, but it was never um, derived from we want to be a sustainable, healthy community. We want to have healthy towns, villages, and cities. So I also have the issue that we have a lot of data. We know exactly a street has to be this size. We have to have certain, if you have certain amount of people, that you have to have a bus or train or so. But this is not
Mm.
the case. It's
Yeah.
like, where do I need mobility? And if I change the world so much that in the villages there is no life, there is no cafe, there's no doctors, there's no school, there's no working space, then obviously before I give any permission to anything, building, non-building, development, or whatever, first I have to think, how do people get to their needs?
Yeah.
And this is kind of like planning out of the concept what
Right.
situations may occur instead of having data. Okay, regularly in a town with 1,000 people, you
Yeah.
have 10% going to work full time. That's not the
Mhm.
case. You
Yeah.
have to think about life, and mobility is a very, very important part of life.
Mhm.
And one issue is obviously to strengthen the villages, the towns, that they can accommodate a lot of the daily needs, but
Yeah.
also to think about the potentials, the scenarios, and what we want to aim for. And this kind of thinking is all also not only for planners very difficult, but also very difficult to communicate to politicians or
Yeah.
citizens, because they are also used to what was so far, and they
Mhm.
are not familiar with uh, hoping, wishing for other things than what is presented to them as the norm.
Yeah.
So you have suggested three different activities for three
Yeah.
different groups.
Yeah.
Uh, I would like to go a little bit deeper what
Mhm.
your perception was, because
Mhm.
you have very different groups. Because if you
Yeah.
have elderly disabled, they have a lot of experience.
Yeah.
They may choose the safest things, so they do things also out of common practice, out of
Yeah.
habit.
Yeah.
Then you have this parenthood, which is a temporary situation, or even caretaking is a temporary
Yeah.
situation. That's also very important for us planners. We plan something to be, as you said, installed in 5 years, 10 years, realize
Mhm.
parenthood hopefully is tough on the first 10 years when the kids are not mobile at all, and then
Yeah.
getting slowly differently difficult, but not on terms of that I have to bring the person to everywhere. Also,
Yeah.
care of elderly is also not eternal work. It's a some years, and the
Yeah.
change is needed now.
Yeah.
Also, youngsters who do not have experience yet the full spectrum of owning a car and being independent, which is in
Yeah.
this age group very important, especially if you don't have the means. I wonder, what specific differences do you suggest in your activities to those three groups, as they have really different starting point?
Yeah. So the thing that kind of runs through the process is that we address these people that are very different where they are. So we don't want them to come to a town hall, for example,
Hmm.
because they have busy lives. They need, because it's such a burden or barrier to come to an extra event. So we address them where they already are. So, for example, with the senior citizens, there is two types to address them. There's kind of this two generations even. there's the ones that are still mobile, that are still meeting friends and going out, and those we address by we through the clubs they are involved in and the regular meetings they have. So in Ottensheim, for example, it's there is this monthly meeting at the municipality, and we went there and we talked to, there were mostly elderly ladies, and we talked to them. We kind of had to shift our own perception because we kind of prepared this very like framework and like things we wanted to go through, but we didn't actually account for their hearing impairment. So since we were a lot of people, we could divide ourselves within the room and we could kind of talk to smaller groups, and then we had to talk very loudly and write down their experiences. So that's the one side of the elderlies. And then the other part to address them is by the caretakers that are actually going into their homes, or when they are in a like facility, that you talk to them and then therefore access their needs. And the the way we address parents is by, there's also like clubs, but those are only the parents that are involved very much. So other parents we try to access through the mandatory meetings they have in the schools anyway. So those are like bi-yearly, and we go to the schools, and we also talk to all the school board directors and kind of get some views already, but the parents' views are different for sure. And then the teenagers, we go into the schools because we have them there already. We they have to be there. They're kind of,
They
you
can
get them
escape.
all. It's kind of the best group to address because yeah,
They are together.
they are all there, and all the others were are. It's kind of it's obviously voluntary. They can opt out, even the teenagers. But yeah, we will do a study, uh, Umfrage, survey,
Yeah.
and we will get by going into the classes, we get the numbers, higher numbers than we would if we would just like send out a mailer. Yeah.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Then you give them also the opportunity to ask questions
Yeah.
and explain in
Yeah.
person.
And
Uh,
we can, I'm sorry, but we can, the difference for the teenagers is that they're more open to new concept in some ways, and they can, we teach them about sustainable transport, and it's kind of like because they are at such a critical stage, we can kind of, they can overthink what their perception is of being mobile. Like, do I actually, what does a car represent for myself and my family? And yeah,
Mhm.
kind of think about these things.
uh, I find the youngsters group very promising because they can still shape their future behaviors and choices. And where else you, as a parent, you have to function. It's already there. You have
Yeah.
24 hours. You have to pack in
Yeah.
family, private if you have any time for private stuff, then
Yeah.
professional life and all your obligations, it's
Yeah.
very difficult. It's already urgent, and it's more or less kind of like saving the day action. It's the uh, kind of the same with different uh, context for the elderly, but with the youngsters, it's really, really promising, and it's kind of like also less written paper. So you might still shift the perception that the car is the only solution,
Mm.
and also because their future behavior will have a big impact, and their future
Yeah.
choices, I think it will.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like also new to see the place where you live and see
Mhm.
the opportunities coming with mobility differently, which is not a common topic. And I wonder how your perception was in the interactions because people talk maybe about money, especially youngsters, maybe about job opportunities. No one talks about electricity, energy, or mobility. It's just
Mhm.
happening. It's perhaps yeah, who's bringing you, or but it's never something where you sit down and have a chat about how do you enter the topic or how do you make it interesting for people.
So we kind of start about asking why they live where they live and what they like about their home. And then we go on and talk about their daily routines. And it's kind of mobility is kind of a nice topic to talk about because people don't perceive it as something very private um, as compared to other topics. So, but it also is like if you talk to someone about your daily routines and like I every morning I do this and that, and I go by car to my work, and my work is there. You're telling actually a lot, but people don't perceive it as like such a revealing thing. So it's kind of interesting for us to be on the other side and receive all that information, but and then we kind of shift from their routines and talk about have you ever thought about doing it differently and what would it look like? Or where would you like to go but you can't go? This is a huge topic for senior citizens. Like when they are dependent on their relatives and they kind of have to ask them every time if they want to visit their sister in the town one over or if they want to meet a friend and it kind of is a burden to ask every time, but then you're also losing out on being social and yeah,
Mhm.
you get to see a lot of different aspects of daily lives and people's burdens. Yeah.
Maybe one last question because we
Mhm.
talked about that those three groups are really very different, but are there any things which could be combined or common? Like, I don't know, out of my head, maybe families need mobility to school times, youngsters
Yeah.
maybe to go out in the evenings and elderly during the day, and that would actually fulfill a full on-demand service because you would cover, I don't know, did you
Yeah.
come up with something like that?
Um, so the through line is maybe the importance of relatives that care for each other, even the grandparents for their grandchild children. That's a through line, and I think it's it's kind of surprising for some of the people who are involved in our project because we come from this we all live in more urban areas and we kind of forgot about the importance of these family ties. And I feel like the the children can also learn from their grandparents and how they like if they talk about how they were going out when they were young and like kind of the places they know they visit in the town and kind of the ways that they used to live there. Like they didn't had to go to the next bigger town to shop because they knew that they knew a time where there was a small shop in the town or the village and kind of going back to these smaller distances, the lives
Proximity.
that revolve around each more around each other, around not only the like the small household, but kind of the village that you live in, and that you can have a lot more services there than you could than now are there, but they can tell them about times when they were there
Hmm.
and they had a fuller life in one place and
Hmm.
didn't have to go further. Yeah.
That sounds good. Promising
Yeah,
transgenerational
yeah,
exchange.
yeah. That's
Thank
my hope.
Thank you very much, Francisco, for sharing your insights and your approach. I wish you all the best with the project. And
Thank
I
you.
don't know if you have a final statement or any needs, any
I
call
just
outs.
want to wish you good luck for fair mobility. I'm in contact with a bunch of you because I interviewed you for my work as well, and I like that we can learn from each other. And I will continue to see this, look at your results and compare them to ours, which is kind of nice. Yeah.
Thank you very
Thank you
much,
for
Francisca.
inviting me.
Thank you for collaborating with us, exchanging. I believe in synergies, and I think it's also good to say there are projects like ours to
Yeah.
make a difference, which are listening to the people.
Mm.
And I hope there will be much more, and we will grow to a network and taking the things into planning, which are not there yet, but with some effort, we could make it happen.
Yeah.
Thank you,
That's
Francisca.
great.
Have a
Thank
nice
you.
day. Thank you for coming. And for all the others, see you in a new webinar. Bye bye.
Bye bye.